Hello, welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're making Alton Brown's smoked paprika chicken thighs with potatoes and onions. It's listing the ingredients again. I mean, it's not listing all of them. There's a few surprise elements in there, but it's not a very creative name, to say the least. But I'm optimistic because obviously this is a remake of the chicken thighs that I made in December, and it's Alton Brown. So he has not led me astray yet. Well, except for there was one time I made a eggnog ice cream from him, and that didn't really work. But it didn't set right. So I think that might have been my fault of either it got too warm while I was mixing it, or my freezer wasn't cold enough. Something, I'm assuming, was my fault there. I'm optimistic that this will go well. I call Alton Brown the Bill Nye of food, just because, like, to show Good Eats. If you haven't seen Good Eats, go watch Good Eats. Also Cutthroat Kitchen. The man's a legend. Also, fun little trivia. By the time you're seeing this, all of these beautiful locks will be chopped off. So hope you enjoyed them. I'm going back to short hair, and then I'll just let it grow out again. So you'll see this in like another 6 months. And then the last point of kind of admin, in the close-ups when I'm doing the prep work, you might notice my hands are a little bit jacked up. And that's because I fell while running. And somehow I did the back of one of my hands and the palm. The palm makes sense. That's kind of how you land on the ground. But somehow I punched the ground, I guess, on the way down. So when you see that, do not be alarmed. I did not get into a fight unless you count it being against Mother Nature, which in that case, don't fight Mother Nature. You will always lose. I think that's all of it. Let's run through the ingredients and then we'll get into cooking. Pimento stuffed olives, lemon zest, garlic, smoked paprika, olive oil, salt, pepper, chicken thighs, potatoes, and an onion. The first step is going to be a prep step, and so we need to grate the garlic, zest the lemons, chop the olives, which is gonna be fun because there's a lot of them and they're small and round, so they're gonna roll all over the place. So just try and chop those up best you can. And then French the onion, which does not involve kissing. Don't do that. It just means like half circle slice thin, so you're not really doing any, I don't know how to describe. It'd be like longitude and latitude. You're only doing latitude cuts if the stems are the poles. That makes sense, I'm sure. You'll see it. You'll see it happen. And then the other thing is the potatoes. Technically, it calls for using a mandolin. I do not have one of those, so I'm going to just try and cut it with a knife consistently and evenly, and hopefully that's good enough. And I think that's it. I think that's all the prep things that need to be done. If not, you'll see something extra in there, but it should be fine. It's beyond the potatoes, it should be pretty quick prep. Now, if you weren't filming, you probably could have done the step, just kind of part of the prep work, but the next step is going to be to take the chopped olives, the grated garlic, and then the zested lemon, and then just combine them together into a small bowl. Probably just use whatever bowl you have the olives sitting in right now, if you prepped everything individually, or just kind of prep those and just add to the same bowl. But I'm trying to make it cinematic and divide up the steps. So here we are. Now we're going to mix the smoked paprika, the olive oil, the salt, only half of the salt, mind you. This is one of those ones, I mean, the recipe is pretty specific where it tells you 3/4 of a teaspoon, but this can be half of the salt listed at the top of the recipe, and then the pepper in a large bowl, because later on you need to add chicken to that. So prep all those in a very large bowl for the amount that you are mixing, and then you should be good to go for this step. So now that we have that very large bowl with a very little amount of kind of spice paste sitting at the bottom, we're gonna add the chicken in and then mix to kind of coat it. I think the recipe says massage, so hopefully you're all licensed masseuses and start massaging in that smoked paprika paste. Now it's time to take a sheet pan with foil on it, and then we're going to layer the potatoes, single layer even, and then add the onions on top of that, and then sprinkle with the other half of the salt. So just another 3/4 of a teaspoon. Now we're going to put a wire rack on top of the potatoes and onions, and then the chicken's gonna go on top of that. And the chicken, I probably should have stated this earlier, was technically supposed to be bone in and skin on, but the recipe actually calls for you to debone it yourself, and I was like, I am not doing that. Which luckily also the store didn't have bone in or skin on, so I bought boneless, skinless, so I'm half in the right, but the issue is you're supposed to put the olive mix under the skin, and because I don't have any, I'm gonna kind of make it stuffed chicken thigh, so I'm gonna put it on the inside and kind of tuck the chicken thigh around that, and hopefully the flavors end up the same. I looked to see if they had boneless skin on. They did not have it. All they had was just boneless, skinless. So you sometimes gotta make do and roll with the punches. But I think I've described the step. Put the chicken on wire rack on top of the potatoes, olive mix going on the inside, kind of tuck it all together. Now that we have everything assembled, throw that in the oven at 375 for about an hour, so it's like 55 to 60 minutes. And then once the chicken's done, you're gonna take that out, and then I'm going to leave the potatoes and onions in there so that they get a little crispy for about another 10 minutes. You don't have to do that if you don't want crispy potatoes, but I like crispy potatoes, so that's what I'm gonna do. All right, here we have it. It looks a little bit like fish. I think that's because of the lack of skin. Like if there was skin on there, it probably would have crisped up, made it look a little bit better, but it smells fantastic. I'm curious to see obviously how it tastes, but also like the texture of the potatoes. And there's not a lot of seasoning on them. So I think the idea is the seasoning's kind of coming from the drippings from the chicken thighs themselves. But I mean, before even tasting it, maybe having put like thyme or something like that on there might have been a good idea, but let's give it a go. That was actually really good. Alton Brown pulled through, and he's also correct. Like, thyme probably would be tasty on there. But the potatoes are good. The one thing I would say, which maybe if I broiled it, that would probably have like crisped it up. The extra 10 minutes didn't really make it crispy, but I mean, it's cooked perfectly. Very tender. The little subtlety of that lemon zest in there just kind of adds something to it. And kind of zangy, whatever taste that I'm at a loss of words for from the olives. I wasn't really expecting that to work, but it did. And it's cooked perfectly. It probably would be better if it had the skin on there, but even without that, the way that I made it, which was not true to the recipe because I couldn't find skin on chicken thighs, was still delicious and relatively low effort. It's a bit of prep, not a ton, and then it's just waiting an hour. So overall, not the simplest recipe that I've ever done, but also not overtly complicated. Granted, it's nowhere near as simple as the recipe that I'm doing better now, because I mean, that one was just cover in spice and then throw in. But also that one was kind of terrible. So this one, vast improvement. It's delicious, it's great. Probably want to have some kind of like green veggie on the side. But it's a kind of like one pan, make all dish, which I haven't really made one of those in a while. And I thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm excited to go eat. The rest of this, I'll probably have another, if not 2 more servings. And on that note, bye Mom, still not dead. See ya.